Okay, Matthew, we are on. Matthew Modine, welcome at the Silver Wave Film Festival, the 20th year of this amazing festival in the East Coast of Canada. I know you've been following the trajectory of this festival since its early beginnings, Matthew, so welcome.
I never miss it. It's one of the highlights of my life.
Oh, it's so good. Matthew, right before we started going live here, you and I were just talking about the immensity of what's going on with COVID cases in the US, that 100,000 people a day in the last days have been infected by COVID. We're in the middle of solidifying the result, the most important of our history, the climate crisis, and here we are. The world is going through a very difficult time right now, and but you and I have been able to connect and talk about some interesting things lately. So I'm a little bit. You're frozen right now for me. Can you hear me? Okay,
No,
Matthew.
I'm not frozen. I'm just trying to
There we
figure
go.
out what you're saying because you're frozen.
I know, always. I
You're
am. I am
you're
in the
in your own
woods,
you're in your
way
own
up.
Disney you're in your own Disney Frozen movie.
Oh, I can
I,
start
I
singing
think
that.
that what
I know all the songs.
what I understood from, given that you were freezing every other second, was that yes, this is the most important election, certainly in my lifetime, the most important presidential election. Um, uh, and you were talking a little bit about the COVID pandemic. And the enormity of it in the United States. I mean, the other day we had 100,000 cases, and then we popped up to 120,000 cases, and we were talking about the size of hockey arenas or American football stadiums. So when you imagine a stadium filled, maybe two stadiums filled for 120,000 people, that many people being infected in a single day, and the people that those people will come in contact with, that it's just almost unfathomable, and the speed at which a virus is able to be spread in a world where we have, people's, it's not like 1918, the pandemic that happened in 1918, because we didn't have international flights and national and international flights and automobiles to carry people from place to place so quickly. So it's a ginormous problem, and requires tremendous responsibility of each of us to participate in safety measures, washing our hands and wearing masks and being careful to social distance. It's our responsibility, not just for ourselves and our families, but for our greater communities.
Yeah, and I think that's as I was breaking up, I was just trying to acknowledge the chaos that's going on in our lives right now, and one of the most critical problems that we have is the climate crisis right now, and that's what connected you and I together a number of weeks ago, just having conversations about how storytellers and filmmakers can have a serious impact in culture, in raising awareness about the things that we can do, all of us, not just filmmakers, but film audiences, the moms, dads, teachers, to do that one thing to create a more sustainable future. And I'd like to pass it over to you to kind of, before we go deep into your career and stuff. You're known as a filmmaker, an actor, and an activist. Let's just start right in with the activism piece, because that's where I show up as well. Is we are using our gifts as storytellers to make some sort of change in the world. let's hear a little bit about your passion for addressing the climate crisis through story.
Well, those I don't know, categories that you just classified myself in. As an actor, I've never really been interested in celebrity and fame and the I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't appreciative of the benefits that come with being a successful working actor. The salary and being able to talk myself out of tickets when I get pulled over by the police and they go, "Hey, you're a private joker from Full Metal Jacket," and they give me a pass. And my wife is sitting next to me saying, "Give him a ticket, give him a ticket." It's not just white privilege, it's a celebrity privilege. And, that's a real thing. And my wife is right that I should get a ticket for speeding, that why should I get a pass because of some film that I made. But what is amazing about the profession of making movies and doing theatrical plays or coming into people's homes on television is that when you are projected onto a motion picture screen, when you stand on a stage and people look up at you and listen to what you're saying, or when you come into people's homes on a television or now in a computer, that the things that you say and the things that you do will have may have, not always, but will have an impact on people's lives. And with that comes a tremendous responsibility. When we look at American politics or global politics, the things that those people that are supposed to represent the citizens of the countries that they're from, they have a tremendous responsibility to them, that they are no more than elected officials. And as elected officials, they are supposed to represent the will of the people. And, there comes the responsibility. When you're representing people and trying to talk to them about the future, is the future that they are presenting a sustainable future? One of the problems of American politics is the 4-year election cycle. So, as soon as they get elected, they're almost campaigning to get reelected in the next election. And what I've learned over the course of my life is that the world cannot the earth cannot, it doesn't function on a 4-year election cycle. That the world can't survive with an economy that's based on consumption. That consuming at the rate that we are consuming is unsustainable. And with almost 8 billion people on the planet, consuming the Earth's resources at the rate and the pace that we are inevitably going to crash into a wall. And I never thought that it would happen in my lifetime, but I see it happening at a terrifying pace, that it's going to happen much sooner than I ever imagined it would. And the pandemic has even generated more waste, while it's been amazing to witness fewer jets being in the air, fewer car travel, and see what it's done to the air, that how much more breathable the air is. To be able to go outside and hear birds singing in Los Angeles or in New York City, because it's quiet, because it's calm. The earth was returning to a more natural state because human beings weren't moving around in their normal pace and their normal rhythm. So the earth has an extraordinary ability to recover and heal, but we have to help it. We have to do everything we can because there's so many of us to make the world safer and more sustainable. So this Do One campaign is simply a tool to be able to inform people how to do something to have a positive impact on the environment. What can I do? So when I saw Al Gore's amazing movie, The Inconvenient Truth, it scared the hell out of me. And I think it scared the hell out of millions of people around the world. But the mistake that the film made was not offering solutions to the problems. It presented problems and made people feel debilitated and thinking, oh my God, well, what can I do? I'm just a one person. Well, that's what the Do One campaign is designed to do. That what can I do as an individual? If there's 10 things that I could do to reduce my carbon footprint, if there were 10 things I could do to make the world more sustainable, would I do 5? Would I do 1? So each of the Do One PSAs, public service announcements that we're making, are designed to be able to be understood globally. That whether you speak Chinese or whether you speak Spanish or whether you speak Portuguese, you would be able to watch this 30-second public service announcement and be able to take an action, to do one action that would have a positive impact upon the environment.
Yeah, and I think this is great. So on my phone here, just for those folks who are just tuning in, we've got a whole bunch of filmmakers here watching us at the Silver Wave Film Festival. Here we go. That's the website. It's do-one.ca, Filmmakers Collaboration. So we're going to come back to that at the end of our discussion, but it's a movement. The Do One is an idea that you came up with. You've worked with our friends Peter Corbin and Dev Spillman building this out, and there's a great opportunity for the filmmaking community here in Atlantic Canada to get involved. And just as a real quick plug, I would suggest if folks can go to that website and put their email in, then Matthew and the team will be able to tell all of us in the filmmaking community how we can get involved in essentially using our skills and our gifts as film storytellers to inspire people to do that one thing. And let's definitely go further back into that later on in the conversation, Matthew. For me, when I went to film school back in 1996 to 99, that's when I was introduced to you on Full Metal Jacket. It's the first time I watched it. We studied it at film school. You've done so many different films over the years, and of course, my latest fave being Stranger Things as Papa. Season 1 being one of the most creepiest things I've seen since Twin Peaks, of course. What throughout that period of time, from Full Metal Jacket to Stranger Things, did you ever think you'd be living in a time that is like the most bizarre, creepy movie as we are today, with things like the climate crisis, the political unrest, etc.? Like, let's just put ourselves back in the early days when you jumped in as a storyteller. If you could look forward to today, would you believe it?
No, I didn't never imagine this kind of dystopian, Orwellian present. I thought that we were really on a fast track to a more sustainable, more livable, more social justice, more racial justice. You know, having grown up in the 60s and the 70s, and you know, the informative years of my life, I believe that we were getting closer to Dr. Martin Luther King's ideal that our children would be judged on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. I believe that that's where we were going. I think that Canada is doing a much better job of having a sustainable, greater equality, greater social justice than its neighbor to the south. And I applaud every Canadian for their fairness and their kindness. You know, we used to make fun because in the 80s they called Canada Hollywood North, and there were so many productions that went on. It took place in Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver, and we used to make fun because Canadians seem to be so apologetic, you know, that they would say, I'm sorry for saying
Sorry,
I'm
we're
sorry.
really sorry about that.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Don't say you're sorry. It's okay. I'm sorry. No, don't say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And it was just so charming. But I grew up in Utah. I was born in California. My father was a drive-in theater manager. I wish he was alive to see the resurgence of the movie theater, the drive-in. But one of the things about having grown up in Utah was that when you live in that kind of rural environment and wasn't so populated then, I don't think there was 1 million people in the state of Utah when I lived there. But what you need to do when you live in a community like that is to rely on one another. That I remember in the fall, I didn't think of it as being a Mormon thing, but it was a thing that happened in the community where if you were growing apples and I was growing peaches, and that there were canning parties, you know, where they mason jars, and there was this great exchange of food where people would can for the winter and put foods up, you know, into their larders. And I thought that was so wonderful. So what the point that I'm trying to make is that in Canada, you still have that pioneer spirit of making sure that if you're driving down the highway and you see somebody who's got a flat tire and it's cold outside, people will pull over to help that person because you know that it might be you next time. And you hope that somebody will pull over and help you, you know, to get through that difficult moment. And so I see that kind of cooperation that it still exists in the Canadian population of making sure that you take care of your neighbor and help somebody, because you never know. You might be the person who's stranded on the side of the road. And I love that about Canada.
Yeah, and it's interesting you use that as a reference. It's I think about this a lot, about what has happened in American society, but you know, Canada is dealing with this as well. And when I see such a polarization in the U.S., like this election race is so close, it tells us a lot that there's at least 50% of or close to 50% of the country is feeling disenfranchised by what the Democrats have to offer. So what does that actually mean? And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I keep going back to fear. Driving down the road, seeing somebody pulled over, for me, is not a fearful thing to stop and help. But there's a systemic mistrust in a lot of other areas. And we have this as well in Canada. And mistrust is the word that I need to use, where somebody else is trying to take away something from me. Right? This is and it's a moral issue, you know, and this is where we get these camps. And myself as a filmmaker, I feel that one of those callings to be in this planet is to help use love through storytelling to disseminate fear. I mean, that's the wrong word. To deplete fear, to build trust. And even in the scripted, especially in the scripted area, you know, that you work in, we have so much power to build bridges, not throw stones. There's a lot of stone throwing on the left and the right. And why don't we talk about that a little bit from the Hollywood perspective? We're seeing a lot of amazing things coming out with story, trying to, you know, positively impact culture and build trust. But are we at a time right now where it's critical that us in the industry really need to build bridges instead of continue to build fear?
We should always try to build bridges, you know, to be able to. It's one of the great things that's wrong with American politics is that inability to reach across the aisle to find out what's best for the country, you know, to shake hands with, okay, I didn't get everything that I want and you didn't get everything you want, but we did what's best for the country. We did what's best for the environment. We did what's best for the economy. But fear, I mean, again, going back to the 60s and 70s, that was, you know, a time when you didn't think twice about sticking your thumb out and hitchhiking, you know, from one side of town to the other, from one state to another, to hitchhike across the United States. People didn't all of a sudden turn into monsters, you know, but what happened? Where did the fear that was, you know, everybody that pulls over to give you a ride is some pervert or some murderer that's going to kill you. Probably happened, but but that didn't. But that fear leaked into that, and it no longer takes place and no longer happens. I used to walk to school, and you wouldn't think twice about, as a child, walking a mile or 2 miles to school. Today, if a parent had their child walk a mile or 2 miles to school, they might be brought up on charges for, some kind of horrible treatment of their child. They certainly would be lambasted and slandered on social media for, I can't believe he made his child walk to school, But is the world so much more dangerous? I don't know. I mean, what I know, the biggest difference from when I was a child to what it is today is that the world is much more populated. So, just by that it exponentially increases the possibility of there being some horrible people in the world that pull over, that are, molest and harm children. But fear is, my union, the Screen Actors Guild, is absolutely being run by a president who runs the union from a fear base, that we're making decisions about the future of the union, about hard-fought victories that previous presidents in the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, have fought so hard, and she's giving them away. Canada's unions are much stronger than American unions, the entertainment unions. But as filmmakers, we have the ability to tell stories that show our better sides and can return us to a place of normalcy, and show what kindness and generosity and random acts of kindness can do in a society. And rather than focusing and magnifying the evil that exists, shifting the focus to those people that are good, and how those good people are rewarded for being good, for doing good things. That's what we should focus on, and stop being so cynical and so evil. When you go, I've oftentimes I'm on the jury of film festivals, or I'm on the board of the New York Film Academy, and I look at young students' films, and generally the first films that young filmmakers make are about rape or murder, craziness, drug addiction. Maybe it's something to do with being 18 to 25 years old when you're making your first films. I don't know what your first film was, but
to stop there, if you don't mind, you're so right. Because in film school, back when I started, I was at the end of the film stock era. So we were shooting on film, 16 mil and some 35, and editing on the Steenbeck and the Nagra for audio, where every single shot counted. It was a great time to learn to be an editor. That being said, I remember so many of my film school colleagues and friends, they were making violent films, and it's still happening today, even in our film festival that we're celebrating right now. I'm sure they're on the slate. It's still there, and is it an easy approach, or is it a genre that we appreciate? If it's a genre that we appreciate, why is it? What is it? Because we don't see these type of films being made at scale in Scandinavia or in Europe or in India. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at here is there is such influence in Hollywood, such huge influence in Hollywood, that it impacts politics, of course. It impacts the way we experience gender equity. It's got so many so many influences to change culture for the negative or for the positive. And that's just an observation I have. But it's so interesting that you say that. It's kind of a predictable thing at film schools. It's going to be violence. Is kind of, instead of approaching a very intelligent love story, if you will, or adventure story, it's almost the quicker path. And let's talk about that for a second, because I think that matters. And not saying anything wrong with that path right now as a filmmaker, but it is notable that it is it's a trend.
Yeah. Well, when I was studying acting with Stella Adler, she had us read The Prophet. And now everybody pronounces these names differently, but I say Kahil Gibran, or some people say Kahil Gibran, but it's the book called The Prophet. And in the book, the prophet says that we speak when we fail to be at peace with our thoughts. So as a young filmmaker, when you're 18 to 30 years old, when you're in film school and making those films, are the stories that they're telling, like Kahil said, are you speaking because you're not at peace with your thoughts, that you're telling a story about the world that you live in? So are the films that those young filmmakers making just a reflection of the world that they live in? Or do they believe that they live in a world where there's so much rape? I'm not a young girl, and I do know that there's an unbelievable amount of sexual harassment that exists in my industry, but not just in my industry, but in schools. The things that young women are subject to, not just young women, but women of all ages, the cruelty that they're in the sexual harassment that they receive is unacceptable and intolerable and all too frequent. So, if you're a young girl filmmaker, is that the story that you want to tell because that's the reflection of the society that you live in? Is that you failing to be at peace with your thoughts? The murder stories, the drug problems, I'm sure that there's certainly in North America, there's a big problem with drugs. The opioid crisis is a real crisis. So are we telling stories about that, and cocaine and marijuana and alcohol? Those are all real things. So maybe they're just telling stories that are reflections of their personal lives.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I wonder if now is a time to really create a movement in Hollywood, to start telling stories, do that one thing that we can do as influencers, that are going to help heal this nation. I say heal this nation, heal the nation, heal the world right now. And it's such a world of polarity, because I think where my anxiety sits is there's so much social unrest that's actually directly connected to the climate crisis that's happening. But most people don't see those dots connecting. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to ever address issues like climate change, for example, and other things if we're a mess socially and don't understand how to love and take care of each other? And maybe it's just a theory I have. I just feel that Hollywood has the opportunity to leverage this in the right direction.
Well, I will tell you this: if we don't address the climate problem, the unsustainable economies that we have, all of the other shit doesn't matter. That it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your education is, or what kind of car you drive, or where you live. If we don't address the climate, if we don't address this unsustainable economy, it doesn't matter. It's as Private Joker would have said, it's a big shit sandwich, and we're all going to have to take a bite. Doesn't matter if you're Steve Jobs or not Steve Jobs, but if you own Amazon or if you own Facebook, those people are not going to escape the climate reality. You froze.
Yeah. Am I still frozen?
Yes.
I'm speaking slowly.
But you're frozen and you're smiling.
Okay, that's a good thing. I'm putting my happy face on there. Well, that's okay. We're going to shift some gears then, and take it to a few questions that are out there. And I encourage anybody who is watching right now, if they've got any questions for Matthew, just to let us know, and Kat's going to relay them to me. One thing, and I know we're going to come back to this again, is Matthew's Do One movement. I'm calling it a movement initiative, filmmaking collaborative. If you want to get some more information on it, again, it's do-1.ca. Do-1.ca, and maybe Kat can share that out into the network.
Is that called a hyphen or a dash? A do dash one or a do hyphen?
What's a hyphen? What is a hyphen? That's a question. What is a hyphen?
Yeah.
Here, how about this? I'll do this again.
Yeah, there you go. Do dash one.
Do dash one. Do dash one. Okay, a couple of questions. Hopefully I'm stable. I don't know if I'm stable, but hopefully my internet's stable. Where do you see film production going in the coming years, even after COVID-19? Theaters compared to streamers like Netflix, Amazon, and other platforms.
Is this a question from somebody out there in the world?
Somebody's watching this from outside in the universe.
What's his screen name or her screen name?
Interesting. This came through from Kat, so I'm not too sure. So why don't we call them Do-1?
Okay, we'll call him Do-1.
Oh no, it's Gary. Gary is the person's name.
Hi, Gary. Gary, if I could see the future, if I knew what, I would not be an actor. I'd be in Vegas raising enough money to be able to change the world. But yeah, it's certainly different, you know. I mean, Netflix and streaming, but Netflix in particular has changed the scope of this profession of storytelling. One of the bad things that's come from that is they oftentimes that they refer to the art of filmmaking as content, and words matter. And I'm not interested in creating content to fill something, you know, to fill a vessel, to fill a empty airspace. I like to work with people who are artists, and so yeah, content is an awful word that's entered the vocabulary of filmmaking. As Greg was pointing out, that he began making films on film. And there's a great discipline that comes when you shoot film, because when you put a camera to your head and you hear film going through the projector, that's money. You know, you have, you know, let's say it's a 16 millimeter daylight load, 200 or 100 feet of film on a daylight load. And then you have to develop that and then, you know, process it and make it into a positive so that you can watch it and edit it. There was something that was really important about that. So when I studied art, we used to get a single sheet of paper, and on that single sheet of paper was a number. So that was, so they wanted to make sure that that was what I was going to be graded on. So you did as much preparation as you could before you started drawing on that piece of paper, because that was the one you were going to be judged on, the one with the number on it. And the thing that's important about that is that when you arrive, you're going to make a film, and let's say that you have a single piece of paper that you're going to make your film on, as a metaphor. When people shoot with digital cameras, that kind of went out the window, that discipline and of what's going to happen when you turn on the digital cameras. So now, oftentimes when you're working on a film, they'll just say, "Oh, just go back to one, say it again, say the line again, go back, you know, lean it," and the camera's just running and running and running, and the editor has to go through and find moments, you know, to be able to pull from that thing. And it's not, I'm not saying that one thing is better than the other. They're just different. But I think that there's something that's so important about the discipline of, did you ever play with a magnifying glass you know, and you focus it in the sun and you bring it to a point where you can start a fire with that magnifying glass with the sun shining through it. That's what used to happen when you worked on films, that you were, you know, at home practicing your lines, preparing for the scenes, thinking about what it is that you're going to do, thinking about what the scene, anticipating what your scene partner is going to do. And then you start coming into the set and they say, okay, Matthew, they're ready for you on the set. And you walk into the set and now you're on the set and all the lights and everything has been brought to this focus, right? And we've reached this point of focus where they bring the thing in and they say, you know, scene 2, act, you know, scene 2, take 1. And it was white hot in that moment of the expectations that the director had for you, that the expectations that the crew and the costume designer and the makeup artist, everybody was focused on that moment to capture that thing that was going to be put into the film, that what you were always trying to do was capture lightning in a bottle. And when you shoot with a digital camera and it's just so random, you know, it doesn't ever feel like you get to that place of focus. You understand what I mean? It's different. It's not, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it's different.
I'm smiling for so many reasons. One, because I'm just remembering having a wall filled with takes, you know, cuts. You take the strip off, put it on the Steenbeck, and you know what? If you didn't have money, you had one chance at it. And if you mess up that cut, your film is ruined. So it's just a different, you're right, it's a different time, a different way. And that goes to the same answer for the streamers like Netflix and Amazon. It's different. It'll be interesting to see, like you and I were talking earlier, Matthew, about the imagined drive-in theater, how that's come back. And it's just, I think we're in a time of content revolution, and it's kind of exciting. And we will have theaters again. We will definitely have a regular theater again. Absolutely. I predict. Yeah. Now there's a comment.
There is a great show. There is a great show. There is a great show on Netflix I just watched called The Queen's Gambit, and I felt that the director, the writer, the entire creative crew of Queen's Gambit did a tremendous job of being very focused on story and character development, and it's a very positive, powerful story that encompasses a lot of the things that we talked about today of you know, alcohol and drug addiction and foster care, adoptive parents. You know, it's very dark, but it has a very positive aspect about human recovery.
Yeah, that's definitely on my list to watch for sure. There was a comment from one of our faithful community members and leader at the Film Co-op, Brittany Sparrow. Not a question, but she says, as a female filmmaker who focuses on love and relationships, I feel my films stand out amongst my peers, and I always try to keep them light and funny. And that was in response to our discussion earlier about
Thank you,
what a neat way to kind of shine in a
yeah. Thank you, Brittany.
Yeah. And Matthew, I've got another question here from Karina Walby. How do you foresee filmmakers help with climate change through film? And I love it because I know you know the answer to this. And should I aim to make my first film about that subject or theme? I think that's a really nice transition.
You froze in the middle of the question. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, there's a emerging filmmaker named Karina who is wondering how to get involved in sharing stories that impact climate change.
Now you're gone.
Did you get that?
No.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. And I apologize to all of the film world for being in the middle of the woods during this interview. Am I back, Matthew?
Yes.
Am I back? Check. Okay, good. Okay, Karina. Oh, just a sec. Karina is asking, I'm going to turn my video off. Karina was asking if there's any tips on creating her first film in a way that would help the climate crisis.
Well, the first thing that you can do is be an example on your set, you know, that making sure that if there are any sets that are built, that they go, you know, to be dismantled responsibly, and any lumber can be given to Habitat for Humanity kind of organizations that would reuse the wood, repurpose the wood. The costumes, that if there are costumes that are used or no longer necessary, that you give them to a charity, you know, where they can be repurposed and reused and enjoyed by somebody else. The water on the set, that, you know, just not having bottles of water, but having well, in Canada, you don't need to drink bottled water. You have good water, so you don't need to do that. So paper cups instead of plastic cups. Make sure that they're cups that aren't lined with plastic. Just for all you people that love Tim Horton or Starbucks, know that the inside of their cups are lined with plastic. So it's really paper that can't be recycled because it's got plastic inside of it. But more importantly, for your health, that plastic that the cup is lined with is PVC, and PVC is a known carcinogen. So when they put the plug in the top of the cap, or the cap that's made out of plastic, and you're putting hot beverages into stuff, you're actually heating PVC up that's leaching into the hot beverage that you're drinking, whether it's tea, coffee, or cocoa. So be aware of that. Also, just think of that when you're heating food up in a microwave, that you really, really should not be heating food up in a piece of plastic that's going to get heated up and leach into your food. Yeah, I mean, car sharing when you're going to set, you know, making sure that you're using that gasoline, that you're bringing people to and from work responsibly. Just try to carpool as much as possible. There are lots of things that you can do on a film set to reduce your carbon footprint and maintain a sustainable production.
Yeah, and there really is a movement to green. I would encourage everybody. There's an organization in Toronto, as well as one in the US that you're involved with, Matthew, or that a friend of yours runs, that it's all about encouraging sets to be green. And I think that's a phenomenal movement in the right direction. When it comes to content, why don't we jump right into the Do One film collaboration, Matthew? Most people haven't seen the website yet, so why don't you tell them what you did as an experiment with some of the PSAs that you shot, and we'll definitely share them out in the community afterwards, and how that's inspired a discussion that you and I have had with Peter and Deb about encouraging Atlantic Canadian filmmakers to help make more of these PSAs.
Well, I think it's important to give Peter Corbin a shout out, because he's been working on Do One with me, and he brought Deb Spellman in, and now you. You know, it's true. It does take a community in order to be able to be successful at most things. Film is certainly one of the most collaborative art forms that there is, and people in the entertainment industry, I will argue, are some of the greatest communicators on the planet. So to be able to use your skills as animators, as script writers, as directors of photography, actors, that we have the ability to be able to tell stories that are efficient, simple, and to the point. And so the Do One campaign, what I wanted to do was to take that message that I shared earlier. If there were 10 things you could do to make the world a better place, would you do 5? Would you do 1? So each of the PSAs, it's important to create a kind of brand, just like we recognize the shape of a Coca-Cola bottle, that the Do One campaign would have a recognizable shape. So each of the PSAs begin with some kind of auditory sound. You know, in the PSA examples that are on the website, which are just kind of demos that I made, you hear the sound of a buzz. And if there were 10 things you could do and this buzzing sound is increasing, would you do 5? Would you do 1? And you see that there's a light bulb that's been left on and the light bulb is turned off. There's the sound of a person in a bathroom and the toilet flushing and the water running, and the girl leaves the bathroom and she comes back and turns the light off because she'd forgotten to turn the light off in the bathroom. There was no reason to leave the light on in the bathroom. There's some that I'm looking forward to when I get back to New York and Broadway opens again. You know, some of my friends that are starring in shows on Broadway, of them in their makeup room, and they say, you know, 5 minutes, Mr. Modine, and the person, you know, whoever that actor is picking up their things, their props and their costume and going out the room and then coming back and turning the light out, or coming out of a play and looking up at the marquee and you know, seeing the name of the play and that performer and them flipping a switch and turning it off. Those are just electrical ones. There's one that we made about carpooling, but each of them have the same format. So I know that's kind of frustrating for some of the creative filmmakers that might be involved, but it's the limitation, going back to that sheet of paper with the serial number on it, you know, that you're going to be graded on, that we're all making similar films, stories, but with different actions, that each of the PSAs have a different action. And the reason that you create something with this kind of format, because after we recognize if there were 10 things you could do to reduce your carbon footprint, would you do 5, would you do 1? That now we can put that written in Chinese, that now we can do it, we can write those things and say those things. And a child that doesn't know how to read yet, but understands visual storytelling, that child can understand what the act is without even having to be able to read or understand the words that are being spoken, but can understand the physical action that they're seeing. Now, and I call the Do One campaign the Smokey the Bear campaign for the environmental movement, because when I was a little boy, I understood what Smokey was telling me, you know, that only you can prevent forest fires. And it wasn't just through those words, it was through the action of seeing him douse a fire with water and covering it up with dirt. Oh, that's how you take care and make sure that you've put your campfire out so that you don't cause a forest fire. Smokey taught me that. And he did it almost without any language. And then when I was old enough to understand what Smokey was telling me, I could repeat, only you can prevent forest fires.
Like all great PSAs do. So the cool thing about this format is it's an experience in audio, like in sound design at the beginning to capture people's imagination, and then an experiment in storytelling in hyper short format, which is a skill set to tell hyper short stories. And you know, I work in the commercial space as well, and to tell a 30-second ad is way more difficult than to tell a story at 4 minutes or 5 minutes, I find, to be able to connect with people's hearts. So essentially what I'll remind folks to do again with my famous little hyphen here, or dash, is do-1. It sounds totally like a Lucas robot, do-1.ca. Put your name into the email, because very soon, and we're going to continue talking to Kat and Tony about this as well. Very soon, we're going to put out a call for filmmakers to join, and I'm going to be a submitter as well. We're just going to flood the market and social media with some really cool PSAs that are thoughtful, and we want everybody to come join. You know, and whether it's shot with the iPhone or an old Bolex, it does not matter. So please do connect with that, friends. So do-one.ca. And Kat, we're coming close to the end. Is there any other questions that are sitting in the inbox? And feel free to say hi too, Kat, if you're on there. So as that happens, as we wait on that, hey, thank you everybody for coming on here. When Matthew gets back, he'll say some closing words, but I do apologize for my unstable internet. I'm up on North Lake on the border of Maine, and we've got satellite internet, so it's pretty choppy. Matthew, we're coming to the end of our discussion. I just want to say how grateful that we all are for you to give your time, and also how you show up as a leader in this message. It really does take a community to make change, and I'm just so excited to see how you're going to influence this sort of change through Do One and everything that our film community can do to help support it. Do you have any closing words, words of wisdom or call to action, anything for these emerging and established filmmakers who are part of our 2-decade-plus film festival community here?
I'm just want to say thank you in advance to any of the filmmakers that would like to jump in and participate in this, because it's not just going to be in northern, North America, in New Brunswick. These are PSAs that we hope, as we reach out to other parts of the world, that will be shared globally. And so I just want to say thank you for your time, your artistry, and for jumping in and becoming a part of this global movement. These are things that I hope young Greta Thunberg will be able to share with her audience. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, that to be the change that you want to see in the world. I'm probably misquoting him, but it's something like that he said. If he didn't say it, I'll say it. That that you, in order to make change, that you have to start with yourself. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you to everyone who listened to this conversation today. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure to speak to my neighbors up north, who I appreciate and love. So thank you.
That's great. And one last question. I have not seen the Martini Shot yet, but I believe that is your latest film release. What post Stranger Things should our film community be excited to watch of yours coming up, Matthew?
Well, that movie, The Martini Shot, is actually made by a filmmaker from Toronto. His name is Stephen Wallace, and I have no idea. I finished that film a couple of years ago, and if anybody knows Stephen Wallace, I wish you'd go give him a good swift kick in the behind and tell him to finish the movie. I don't know how you can make a movie and not complete it in 2 years' time. I mean,
it's epic. That's why.
It's a charming story about a director who thinks he's God, who might be God, and he's depressed and he's dying. He has an incurable disease, and his psychiatrist says that you should go make a movie. That'll make you feel better. And so he goes to make a movie that has no plot and has no purpose, but other than just to go make a movie. And he's just wandering around and meeting people. And it was a very charming story and script. And then I understand that Stephen Wallace has made several movies and has not completed any of them. So it's very frustrating as an actor, an artist, to go to work on something that just appears to have been a whimsy, and then you start to wonder, was I involved in some kind of criminal thing where somebody was just laundering money? But it was an extraordinary experience. Worked with John Cleese from Monty Python and Derek Jacobi, and Fiona Wright. I mean, it's an extraordinary cast and a beautiful story, but I don't know how the movie can be completed because there's voiceover work that has to be done, and I haven't recorded it. So maybe they got a real God to replace my voice.
Oh my gosh. Well, listen, on that note,
that was me throwing a lot of shade on Stephen Wallace. Finish your movie, dude.
Finish the movie, Steve.
Yeah.
New Brunswick. We're ready. We're ready to defend Matthew's honor in this. Well, Matthew, thanks a lot, my friend. We'll be in touch soon, and enjoy the rest of the day. And there will be peace. And my favorite MLK requote is the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I think we're at the beginning of seeing that arc bending towards the way that restoration and healing can happen soon. So thank you for all of your inspiration in that. And we'll chat with you soon, my friend.
Thank you. That's a wonderful way to end this conversation.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
The curve. See you later, man.
Okay.